is looking for you. The devil is on the way. When the voice is in your head, whisper creepy things at night.
An Oklahoma man accused of multiple disturbing crimes for years was in court today.
Mr. Piette, do you have anything to say about the allegations against you?
Most of it are lies. 99% are lies. I'm telling the truth.
Rosalynn Mcginnis' story is a story of almost impossible survival. Yet through her bravery and the help of kind strangers, she was able to overcome some almost unbelievable circumstances. Rosalynn had been kidnapped by her predator stepfather when she was only 12 years old and held captive and abused by him for 19 years. This is a true crime story that's rarely discussed, and just so happened the kidnapping took place in my home state of Oklahoma. Hello, my name is Holly. Welcome to the Murder She Shed. Y'all come on in and listen for a spell, and before you leave, just make sure to smash the subscribe button because an Okie can get lost in this big YouTube world. I'm so close to 13,000 subscribers, and it would make my week to hit that number on this video. Thanks, you guys are the best, and us nerds, well, we need to stick together. Oops, some of you guys might not like to be called nerds, so if you're not, I'm sorry. Let's just move on from that. Let me visit my doctor for a second on this case. I may need to. Rosalynn Michelle Mcginnis was born on May 14, 1994 in Springfield, Missouri. Rosalynn was born to parents Michael and Gayla. Michael owned a construction company and Gayla was the secretary of that company. By 3 years old, Rosalynn could play the violin beautifully. She was great at that. Can you imagine being able to play an instrument by 3? I can't even at 50-something. Am I 52 or 53? I don't know. I'm so old I forgot. See, how can I play an instrument? She also loved animals, so she couldn't decide if she wanted to be a violin teacher or a vet when she grew up. After starting school, she became an honor roll student. Rosalynn lived in a modest 2-story home in Springfield, Missouri. It was only a few blocks from a park where her and her friends often would go to play, and they'd done that since they were small. It was a neighborhood where all the children just felt safe. When Rosalynn, who was now 9 years old, showed up at the park one day, there were some new children playing on the swings at that park. She had never seen them there before. She introduced herself and found out they had just moved into the neighborhood, and she also met their dad, HENRI PIETTE. She played at the park with the children for several weeks off and on and seemed to grow a bond with them. Soon Rosalynn's mom, Gayla, began letting her go to Henry's house to play with her new friends. Gayla was so busy at work, and it gave her daughter just something to do besides. Gayla really liked Henry. Gayla enjoyed talking to Henry about their interest in religion and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because her husband Michael was not interested in religion at all. Eventually, Rosalynn would be allowed to have sleepovers at Henry's home, and this is when the abuse began. Henry was a predator in hiding, and Rosalynn wasn't the only child he had been interested in. Henry's oldest son had caught Henry twice in the past abusing little girls. One day, he walked in on Henry giving an 8-year-old girl a shower and touching her privates. Another time, he saw Henry giving a different young girl a driving lesson. He groped her bottom while she sat on his lap. When Rosalynn was 10 years old at one of these sleepovers at Henry's home, on the bottom bunk of his child's bed, he crawled in bed with Rosalynn and essayed her for the first time. Rosalynn felt like it was a bad dream, that she was dreaming, but soon realized this dream was far too detailed to just have been a dream. Soon after this, Henry began to try to get Rosalynn's mom, Gayla, to break up with her husband. Her dad, Michael, was away at job sites a lot, so Gayla was lonely. Michael found out about the affair and kicked Gayla out of the home. Soon after, Henry moved Gayla and the children to a new home in Wagner, Oklahoma. All along, Rosalynn's abuse continued, and her mother knew that Henry was essaying her. Henry began beating Gayla and the children in order to keep them in line. Henry would also read Bible passages to the children constantly and encourage Gayla to hit the children too. He started separating the children and imposed something almost like a hierarchy system. He hit the children with 2x4s when they said words incorrectly. After one of Henry's beatings drew the attention of authorities, he convinced Gayla that she would be blamed for it, and so they took the family on the road trip. They moved on an almost daily basis, passing through Arizona, Oregon, Utah, California, Montana, Missouri, Texas, Oklahoma, and Guatemala. Henry forced the children to beg for money, and at times the family lived in a tent. Henry began giving Rosalynn beer and essaying her daily. Finally, Gayla got tired of the beatings and escaped to her mother's home in Independence, Missouri, and she took all the children with her. A few weeks later, Henry went to Independence and took them straight back to Oklahoma, where he was able to talk Gayla into getting married. What Gayla didn't know is that one day before he married her, he also forced his 15-year-old son to conduct an unofficial wedding ceremony for him and Rosalynn in the back of his van. When Rosalynn was 12, her family landed in a domestic violence shelter in Poto, Oklahoma, because their abuse had been turned into CPS, and Rosalynn thought she had finally escaped this evil monster when they got out of his grips this time. Unfortunately, that monster had already been putting an evil plan together in order to be able to kidnap Rosalynn, so he never had to let go of her again. Rosalynn was in 6th grade at Pansy Kid Middle School in Poto, Oklahoma, when she was called to the school office on January 31st, 1997. As reported in the news, a male about 18 years old picked up Rosalynn that day. This male turned out to be Henry's son. The son took Rosalynn to a hotel in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Henry and his other children were staying. When she asked about the rest of her family, Henry told her there was not enough time to get her brothers and that Gayla wasn't coming back. He introduced Rosalynn to his children as their new mother. Rosalynn was horrified. Henry also convinced Rosalynn if they were caught, she would be locked up in a mental institution because she had allowed him to abuse her. Henry dyed her hair black and made her wear fake glasses to disguise her appearance. He also said she would no longer go by Rosalynn Mcginnis and changed her name multiple times over the years. Rosalynn was never allowed to attend school ever again. Her mother reached out to the media, and Child Search Ministries soon circulated a missing person flyer with her photo, age, and the date she disappeared. It said she may be in the company of her non-custodial stepfather, using the last name PIETTE. Weeks passed, and searchers failed to locate Rosalynn. Henry moved Rosalynn and his children around the country several times, taking advantage of benefits provided by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. All the children were drilled on what to say if people actually stopped and asked them questions. Henry forced Rosalynn to write letters to relatives, the media, and law enforcement, saying that she ran away from her crazy mother and no good family. The searches eventually stopped shortly before her 13th birthday, but the horror she would endure was only beginning. Henry raped her at least 3 times daily. Within a few months of being kidnapped, Rosalynn was pregnant. She didn't realize what was happening to her. She was still a little girl, and she suffered a miscarriage. Henry told her to flush the fetus down the toilet of the apartment they had been staying in at the time. Soon after this, Henry started giving Rosalynn drugs and beat her more frequently. Then while living in Idaho, she became pregnant again. This time she was 14. Henry moved the family to Mexico to avoid questions about her pregnancy, but when he brought her to the hospital, the doctor said it was too soon to deliver the baby. Henry disagreed. He used a pocket knife to deliver the baby on the floor of their van. At the time, they were living in an abandoned trailer that was on a piece of land that had no electricity, no water, had holes in the floors, and was infested with bed bugs. For the next 16 years, Henry moved the family around Mexico and Guatemala, rarely spending more than a few months in any one location, though they would take occasional trips back to the U.S. Rosalynn delivered 8 more of Henry's children. These children did not go to school, socialize, or even learn how to read. They were isolated from others. Rosalynn was not even allowed to teach them. The children were also neglected. One of the boys had a single pair of shorts that he kept on his body with a rope. One of the girls almost drowned in a bucket of water. So Henry hung her upside down to shake the water out, and she did recover. The family's lifestyle consisted of begging on the streets and living from place to place. Sometimes Rosalynn tried to make extra money for her children by selling homemade ice cream. Whatever the source, all money went back to Henry. He spent it on drugs and alcohol, which he also abused. The alcohol made Henry extra mean, and he began beating Rosalynn daily. At times, he would chain her to a bed or a pole in the house. She was stabbed, shot, and both arms were broken. The day she gave birth to one of her children, Henry attacked her for speaking out of turn. He picked up a stainless steel frying pan and tried to hit her in the stomach right after she just gave birth. She was able to put her arm in front of her stomach before he hit her, and it cut her arm all the way to the bone. He would also beat the children to the point of unconsciousness. He would hit them with 2x4s, bats, rocks, pans, pickaxes, glass bottles, fruit, and anything that was in reach, really. They eventually ended up with 9 children together. Henry would tell the children that they were animals and that the only reason that they were still alive is because their mother was there. He told them that if she wasn't, that he would kill them all. Not only would he abuse his own children physically, but also started showing an interest in them. So now incest comes into play. When their oldest daughter was 5, he started asking her to pull down her underwear and show her privates to him. Eventually, he started forcing her into OS. By the time his daughter turned 7, Henry started putting objects inside of her privates, such as frozen hot dogs and drumsticks. He would punish her by cutting up chilies and rubbing chili juices on his fingers, then placing them inside of her. Soon after, he started raping her. When she resisted it, he told her, well, it would be either her or one of her sisters. Eventually, it was one of her sisters, though. Her sister was 7 when it also started for her. Henry told Rosalynn that he would kill the children and then her if she ever left him. He also told her that if she got the police involved, nobody would ever believe her, that he would kill her, that her family did not want her back, that he was the only one that would ever care for her, and that she was to do exactly what he told her to do or else. Although this didn't stop Rosalynn from attempting to escape with her children. Once alone with her children in an Arizona motel room, she called a woman's crisis shelter, but Henry returned before the shelter could assist her. Another time, Rosalynn took her children to Henry's son's home. Henry quickly arrived, dragged Rosalynn out by her hair, and beat her. The oldest son managed to escape, and although a knife fight ensued, Henry did not kill him, and he did not return, though, which I can't blame him. Imagine if you could get away, get away. And I wouldn't even wanted him to return as a mother. I'd be like, stay away. A chance encounter with a couple at a market would finally be the beginning of her chance at freedom. In 2016, Rosalynn was in line at a market with her 8 children when she realized she did not have enough money to buy her groceries. A nice older couple was in line behind them. They were named Ian and Lisa, and they helped buy the family groceries. Lisa was from California and was married to Ian, who was from England, and they enjoyed a summer home together there in Mexico. This home happened to be near where Rosalynn currently resided. The couple also owned a restaurant by the beach where Rosalynn often would sell her homemade ice cream. Lisa and Ian had already been discussing how young that Rosalynn looked to be able to already have 9 children. They knew something just wasn't quite right about this couple. The children's apparent sleeping arrangements bothered the couple too. There were 3 stalls, for lack of a better word. They're all in a line with a raw cement floor, and they had holes in the walls for doors and windows, but no doors and windows. And on the floor of each of the cubicles were a very, very thin, maybe 1/4 of an inch thin foam exercise mat that was the kids' beds with no pillows, no blankets. And the kids looked neglected. They were just dirty and unkempt, and they just felt like something was not right with this family at all. And he seemed so much older than her. So one day, while they were visiting the children, while Rosalynn was recovering from gallbladder surgery, Lisa was able to get Rosalynn off by herself and told her, if you ever need help, me and Ian can help you. Rosalynn finally opened up and said to Lisa, look, Stephanie isn't my real name and Bill isn't his real name. Lisa said, well, who are you then? This is when she admitted that she was Rosalynn and Henry was her stepfather and had kidnapped her, and she had been tortured and kidnapped for 19 years by her stepfather.
We got online, and there was this poster for missing children, and there she was, looking almost identical to where she was, but when she was 12. And there's this little, looked like one of her children on this poster, and there she was from Missouri. And she turned to me and she goes, I've been waiting 20 years for somebody to do the math and figure out that a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old shouldn't have babies like this.
We knew we needed to do something to help them, but the question was how, what, why, and when.
Weeks went by, and one day when Henry passed out from drinking, Rosalynn told the children to grab some clothes and put them in a bag. They needed to get the heck out of there. Rosalynn and 8 of her children, and the oldest son had already escaped by then, and he had already returned to the U.S. But Rosalynn and her other children got in a taxi and set out to find Lisa and Ian. The couple had moved by now, but fortunately, Rosalynn and Ian crossed paths while he was walking the dog. Rosalynn managed to get Henry temporarily thrown in jail, buying time to gather money and everything she needed to return to the U.S. Lisa and Ian took care of the children and discovered most of them could not even read or write. They were also extremely hungry. Lisa at this point contacted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Washington, D.C. That organization looked up Rosalynn Mcginnis' name and saw she was still registered as missing. The family then traveled together to the U.S.-Mexican border, and once there, travel documents came through from D.C. They flew then to Dallas, and then at Dallas Airport, they were reunited with the Mcginnis family and went to Kansas City. After arriving in Kansas City, volunteers and businesses fixed up a home for Rosalynn and her children. Rosalynn's oldest son, who had run away from home before Rosalynn had escaped, now returned to live with his mother. Henry was arrested after he tried to re-enter the U.S. in 2017. Henry was sentenced to life in prison and made to pay Rosalynn and the children $50,000, although I'm assuming they probably never saw that. But I did see where a GoFundMe account was set up for her after she arrived in the U.S. and she did get some money that way. It wasn't a lot, but maybe it was enough to help her at the time. So I hope that she is doing good in life, and I hope her children are doing good in life. I mean, I can't imagine being as strong, as brave, and an amazing woman to be able to get through this and survive and raise all these children. I mean, 9 children on her own. It takes a very strong person to get through something like that. I mean, if you've heard my story, I was SA'd when I was about 7 years old by a neighbor, which doesn't compare at all to what happened to this woman. And it was traumatizing enough. I've had years of counseling from it. But to survive something like this, I can't even imagine. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go because I'm burning up in the murder she shed. I didn't turn on the air conditioner today. And the humidity lately's really been getting to me. I probably got the sweatiest make it ever today. It's looking pretty rough, so I guess I'll let y'all go before I melt. I'm like the snowman, and I'm just going to melt into little bitty pieces in this murder she shed. And literally, I'm going to be the person that gets murdered in here from melting away. I don't know what all that was. I'm sorry. Sometimes I go strange with my ADHD, and I went strange that time. I'll get the dogs to say bye on that note, and I'll just let y'all go. Here comes our baby. He's coming. He's coming. He's telling y'all bye. Here he is. He says bye. He says he loves y'all, and he'll see you next time. You'll see him next time at the murder she shed, huh? You're snorting like a pig. Are you hot or something, too? All right, let's go. You ready to go for a whirl? Here we go. I know. Let's go.
When the darkness falls upon you, suddenly so